Somebody went back through the original reports on the Nolan Wells case, and there's a line in there that's been sitting in plain sight this whole time. On July 5th, a captain with Mississippi Marine Resources called a master sergeant and told him to locate and interview a female subject. Not a family member, not somebody who'd called it in. A female subject, described as possibly involved with the missing person on Horn Island. Here's what stopped me. That same captain spent that entire morning stuck out on Horn Island trying to get a drone in the air. Failed launches. A software error he couldn't fix in the field. He had to call for a second officer, ride out, pick him up, ride back. That's his whole morning, documented, in the same report. So when did he get a name? Somebody handed him that information. And we don't know who. That's what this is about. Not who's guilty, who was talking. Straight with you before we go further. Nobody's been arrested. This case is not solved. Nothing you're about to hear proves a crime. What changed isn't new evidence. It's an old document people are finally reading differently. That's usually how movement happens in a case like this. Not some dramatic discovery, but a paragraph that was always there that nobody weighed properly the first time. Two things surfaced this week: a boat and a report. The boat is what got everybody's attention, and we're going to look at it. But the boat only matters if you can put it somewhere on a map, on a specific day, at a specific hour. So we're doing the timeline first. If you're praying for Nolan and his family, keep doing it. We'll come back to them at the end. We have spent months arguing about who was on which boat, who went out to the island, who came back, who got left. And every single time, the argument hits the same wall. A narrow window of time, several different boats, several different groups of people, and accounts that don't line up cleanly. That's not a detail. In a disappearance, that is the case. If somebody says they were in one place at 10 in the morning, and a phone record puts them somewhere else at 10 in the morning, that stops being a memory problem. If somebody says a boat was in one spot and GPS says otherwise, that matters. And when several independent records agree with each other, that's about as close to truth as an investigation gets. So I'm less interested in who looks suspicious in a photograph than in one simpler question. Where was everybody, and who was standing next to an investigator when investigators started writing names down? Because somebody was. Walk through what the report actually says about that morning, because the clock is the whole story. 9 a.m. assistance is requested from the captain as part of the drone search. He gets transported out to Horn Island. Around 10, 3 launch attempts. All 3 fail. It turns out to be a software error, and he can't fix it out there. 10:30, he requests a second officer come out and help with drone duty. He and another officer go get that man and bring him back to the island. 12:40, the first drone finally gets in the air. That's 3.5 hours of a man on an island, on the water, and in a truck, dealing with a piece of equipment that wouldn't work. Now put the phone call inside that. At some point in that same stretch, he calls a master sergeant and gives him a woman's name and tells him to go find her. A woman who says she hadn't seen Nolan in over a year and was on a completely different island. He didn't pull that out of the air. Somebody was standing in front of him. So who's out there that morning? According to their own account, 3 of the young men from that 4th of July group took the Palm Beach out to the islands the morning after Nolan disappeared. They get out there and DMR is already working it. Several boats, park rangers, a full search underway. They talk to them, they give their information. They get asked directly whether any of them had been on the boat with Nolan the day before. And by their own timeline, they're out on that water from around 9:45 until somewhere close to noon, which puts them in front of investigators during the exact window that phone call had to come from. That is not proof that they gave anybody a name. I want to be careful there, but it's the first version of that morning where the information has somewhere to come from. Hold on to that, because this week something else surfaced, and it's the reason people went back and read that report again in the first place. 2 people out boat hunting, filming as they go, walking a stretch of city easement, and they come up on a boat sitting behind a security fence, a Triton, same manufacturer as the boat everybody in this case has been talking about since day one. No name on the hull that they could see. What they did see was a trim setup that wasn't hooked up, and there had been talk of trim trouble on the day Nolan disappeared, and a key still sitting in it. I want you to watch it yourself, because what they noticed matters more than what they said about it.
Crocs on the ground, and you're never gonna believe what I just found. Yeah, watch. All right, so I'm here with Biloxi Cooking and Fishing.
What's going on, yo?
And we are boat hunting today. We are out here looking at, no, it does say security. Let me show y'all what's right next to the fucking wildcat we just found. Look at there.
Oh.
What?
Oh.
What?
That's interesting.
What's interesting?
The trim's not hooked up on.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
See those two rods coming out of the...
Yeah, but I don't know what that means.
That's the trim. What
Okay.
that does is that makes that motor do that.
Okay.
Okay? So if the trim is not hooked up, and they were saying that they had issues with the trim, assuming this is the boat, and I'm not sure because I don't see a name on it.
Hold on. There's a key still in it too. Let's get nice and in.
By the way, people, just to let y'all know, if somebody says we're trespassing, we are on city easement, so kiss our ass.
Out the gate.
We are on city easement.
I know what a lot of you thought watching that. Is that Nolan's boat? Fair question. Honest answer, we don't know. And right now, nobody watching that footage can know. A Triton behind a fence is a Triton behind a fence. Same manufacturer doesn't make it the same hull. A security fence doesn't mean a federal seizure. No name, no registration read, no hull number, so what we're all looking at is a boat that resembles a description. The trim is the one detail in there with any teeth, but you can't build a case on a mechanical coincidence filmed through a fence. What that footage is genuinely worth is this. A boat is one of the few things in this case that can actually be identified. Registration, hull identification number, ownership, where it's been sitting and who put it there. All of that exists on paper somewhere, and any of it would settle the question in an afternoon. That's the line I care about, not what looks suspicious, what can be checked. And that same instinct, go find the record, is what sent an independent researcher back into the original reports, which is where this gets much heavier. This next breakdown comes from a source covering this case online. I'm going to let it run, and then we're coming back and separating what's documented from what's being inferred. Pay attention to the exact wording of the report. That's the part that reframed this for me.
And yes, I have already tried making a video about this, so let's try it again. All right, so according to one of the original MDMR reports, Captain William Freeman called the Master Sergeant and told them to locate and interview a female subject. And that's how we get to this girl, Lainey. Now, this has always bothered me because I'm like, why is Lainey's name in this report? Why was she brought up at all? Especially since, according to Lainey, she hadn't seen Nolan in over a year and was on a completely different island. So it never made sense to me. And then it effing hit me. So according to this report, on July 5th at 9 a.m., assistance was requested from Captain Freeman as part of the drone search. Freeman was transported to Horn Island, and at approximately 10 a.m. he tried 3 failed launches. It ended up being a software error, and he was unable to fix it in the field. So then at 10:30, Freeman requests that Smith come out and assist with drone duty. Freeman and another officer went and picked up Smith and transported him to Horn Island. But by 12:40, the first drone finally takes flight. Now, wait a minute. If Freeman was out on Horn Island trying to do this drone launch, had to call in assistance, go and get that person, bring them back to Horn Island, then when the F did he get this information about Lainey? Oh, wait, I have an idea.
Was looking for Nolan, who was on the boat. Was it multiple boats? Multiple boats. Okay, explain that. Who was out of this group? Who was on what boat? Or who was on a boat or not? Going out looking for Nolan.
So, me, Wyatt, and Trayson got in the boat. We got in the Palm Beach that morning, the morning after, and to the islands, and we were met by a DMR. There was 7 DMR boats already out there, DMR and park rangers. We talked to them. We gave them all of our information. They personally asked if any of us were on the boat with him that day. We told them yes. They just said, all right, well, we got the area scoped out. And then after that, we just went up to the beach. I think we met up with y'all in the water.
Okay, so by Morgan's own words, he, Trayston, and Wyatt were on the Palm Beach out at Horn Island talking to MDMR. Oh, and when was that? When did they do that?
From 9:45
to 11:50, 12 o'clock era, about lunchtime. While we were on the water, we talked to a rescue guy.
Oh, you were out there until 11:50, you say? You mean 5 minutes before this phone call happened? Does that sound like a coincidence to you? Now, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to conclude that they were the ones who gave this information to Captain Bill Freeman. Again, why would they give Lainey's name if she wasn't there in that group that day? Especially when he was supposedly last seen with Katie, whose name again is conveniently absent from any report that we've seen. Now, this is about to get deep, y'all, because I reread the line again, now knowing that the boys were the ones who probably gave this information and not just some random good citizen. Specific wording says, Captain Freeman said to locate and interview a female subject that was possibly involved with the missing person on Horn Island. Possibly involved? How did I miss that? How did we all miss that? Because there's two other boys mentioned in this that they don't make contact with, and it just says possible names associated with Wells. That is very different and intentional language. Now, as I've told y'all, I've spent weeks learning the dynamics of all these different friend groups and who they're friends with online, etc. Now, this is Lainey. Now, most people have clocked this picture where Lainey is with a girl who is wearing the same swimsuit last 4th of July as the one that is on the boat with Katie. I'm going to try and do this in the easiest way possible. I have narrowed down the BFF group with Lainey and these girls. All of these girls have called each other their best friends and taken pictures with each other at some point or another. Now, none of these girls are friends with any of the Wyatt Warren friend group. All of them are friends with Trayston and Trayston's sister. Trayston's sister has best friend picture relationships with all of these girls. It's very clear that this is a core group of friends. There's group pictures with them, they've lived together, etc. Now, Kendall is the one in the blue and red bikini in this picture. But I found another picture of Bailey and Maggie here from last 4th of July wearing the exact same red and blue swimsuit that Kendall was wearing. So it's pretty safe to say that these girls coordinated all wearing the same bathing suit. Also found this picture of Lainey from 2 4th of Julys ago wearing this bathing suit. Does it look familiar to anybody? That's right, that is clearly the same bathing suit from the boat with Katie, with a face that's conveniently been blurred. Now, do we think it's a coincidence that 2 swimsuits associated with this friend group all ended up on the same boat as Katie? I'm gonna say the chances are slim. Now, Kendall seems to have a longtime boyfriend, and guess what his name is? Jacob Brooks, which is the second name that comes up on this report. And guess who seems to be Lainey's longtime boyfriend? Drew Johnson, the other name on this report. Now, Drew, unlike all of these people over here, Drew is friends with the Warren Wyatt friend group. Also the only one out of this entire group that is Facebook friends with Nolan. If this was the boys telling this information to the captain, why were they saying that their buddy's girlfriend was possibly involved with Nolan? And why would Trayston be snitching on his sister's friends like this? Now wait, one of Katie's BFFs, Nevaeh, is friends with a Caden McGrath. Caden is friends with 0 people from either group except for Nevaeh, as far as I can tell. Caden is somehow related to a Joe, who is frequently advertising on his page for the Biloxi Bay RV Resort. The one that I was saying that according to the GPS coordinates looks like they may have dropped somebody off at. So in my opinion, Joe is clearly somehow related to the Marty McGrath, who was the one who apparently took all these people on this boat, including Katie, when this friend group was supposedly left on this island. And I feel like that language is really important and overlooked because left makes it sound like your ride left without you. Now, according to Joe's LinkedIn, he is IT for the Ocean Marine Group, which is owned by Jerry Adkerson. Aiden is also the only person I can find who is friends with Captain Chris Seth Ward, the son of Chris Ward, who was called by Jerry to cancel the sea tow allegedly on his private line before the sea tow call was even finished. I also found a very weak connection through social media between Lainey and a girl who is in the same sorority as the girl who threw the party, Ava, allegedly threw the party. So what if Trayston's slick comment wasn't about Katie at all? Because I don't know about you guys, but we have seen absolutely zero proof that Katie was actually out there with them. They have kept the story hyper-focused on Katie, and no other girls' names have really gotten out. But if Katie has been the red herring this whole time, I don't know. I'm still trying to piece through. I'm still trying to figure it out because there's clearly a chunk that is missing out of this story. Like, I think Lainey is a red herring too, don't get me wrong, because I don't see these boys like freely offering up their motive or anything. But it sounds like maybe this Lainey girl was involved with Nolan behind her boyfriend's back at some point.
Take a breath, because some of that is much stronger than the rest. The strongest piece is the wording. If the original report says what's being quoted, then that language is doing real work. Reports don't get written casually. Somebody chose possibly involved for one person and possible names associated with for two others in the same document on the same day. That does not make her a suspect. It doesn't mean she hurt Nolan. It doesn't even mean investigators thought she witnessed anything. But it means somebody gave them a reason to go find her specifically. And that's my question. Not is she guilty, but why was she considered relevant enough to locate and interview? Then there's the timing, and here I have to slow us both down. The inference is that the men on the Palm Beach are where the name came from. The clock sits uncomfortably close, but close is not connected. We cannot walk from they were there to they said it. What would settle it is a supplemental report, an interview record, a statement, a call log, something that names the source. Until that exists, this is a strong question, not a finding. The rest of that breakdown is social mapping, friend groups, who's dating who, matching swimsuits from old 4th of July posts, a chain of friends that eventually touches boat owners and marine businesses. Blunt about this, social media can make 6 degrees of separation look like a conspiracy, and it isn't one. Facebook friends proves nothing. Dating somebody proves nothing. Same friend group proves nothing. Knowing a guy who knows a guy with a boat proves nothing. The swimsuit comparison is the clearest example. The same red and blue suit in photos a year apart, used to suggest who's in a blurred image on a boat. Worth a look, maybe, but people buy the same suit. People borrow clothes. Compression shifts color. Without the original high-resolution image, that's a lead, and treating a lead as an identification is how innocent people get named. What are those connections good for? One real thing. They map the network around the people who were physically there. That's how you build a witness list. Who to interview, not who to charge. Here's the part that does interest me. If those men supplied that name, they named a woman inside their own extended circle. Somebody's girlfriend, somebody's sister's friend. That's a strange thing to volunteer to a police captain on the morning your friend is missing. Unless somebody asked them a question we haven't seen yet. Which brings us to the theory picking up steam, that the person the public has focused on this entire time might not be the part of this that matters. I understand why people land there. Katie's name is absent from the reports we've seen. The 2 other names in that document are men. The one person investigators reportedly moved to locate is a woman almost nobody was talking about. But I'm not telling you she was a red herring, because I don't know that. I don't know it about the other woman either. Here's the narrower version I'll stand behind. The public timeline and the documented timeline are not the same shape. There are people in the reports the internet barely mentions, and people the internet talks about constantly who aren't in the reports at all. That gap is real. What's inside it, I can't tell you yet. Same with the federal angle. If the FBI is meaningfully involved, that's significant. But a boat behind a fence doesn't become a seizure because it would make a better video. If it gets confirmed, we'll cover it. If it gets knocked down, we'll cover that too. So let me put this where it actually stands. Documented. A captain requested a female subject be located and interviewed, described as possibly involved with the missing person on Horn Island. 2 additional names appear in weaker language. The drone operation ran through that morning with repeated failures before the first flight went up after noon. Claimed that the men on the Palm Beach supplied the name, that the boat behind the fence connects to this case, that specific women appear in specific photographs, that federal investigators are moving. Unknown. Everything that would settle it. Who gave investigators that name? What she told them if they reached her? Why the wording changed between one subject and the others? Whose boat that is? None of this gets solved by finding the most suspicious theory. It gets solved by pulling records. Run the hull identification number on that boat and the registration behind it. Pull the full original MDMR report, not the excerpt, including whatever supplemental documents where that name came from. Phone records for the window between the failed launches and that call, marine radio traffic, boat GPS, original photos with their metadata intact, and the interviews with the people who say on camera that they stood out there and gave DMR their information that morning. Every one of those exists. Everyone is checkable. That's the difference between a case that stays a mystery and a case that becomes a timeline. Behind all of it, there's a family still waiting, and they don't need us manufacturing certainty. They need the truth, and sometimes the truth kills the theory you were attached to. So tell me, not who you think did it. Which record would you pull first? The registration, the full report, the phone logs from that morning, or the one I haven't thought of? When the next piece drops, we'll be here for it. Not the rumor, not the loudest theory, the evidence.